It is the cool season as I'm recording this video. And what are our cool season vegetables and what are the considerations for those cool season vegetables? We're going to run over this real quick. This is just a quick overview. We will have a class at some point where we'll dive in a bit deeper. But these are the things you can plant right now. All your vegetables and herbs, cool season vegetables and herbs, want to be in well-amended soil. So garden soil. We're not talking about like planting native plants. Plants that we want a lot from, that we are trying to grow for food, we need to give more than just putting in dirt and maybe a little compost. So well-amended garden soil and some steady feeding once in a while, which in the wintertime is less often. Once a month would be like amazing. You don't even have to do it that much. I've gone whole seasons with only feeding once or twice and had really good results, but you can also feed a little bit more. I will note the exceptions of the things that you don't want to feed a lot. So let's start talking about the various crops. It's the season for greens or reds. And so that's all the greens. And that means lettuces, that means, mustard, komatsuna, mizuna, cabbages, shungiku. There's so many greens you can plant. Swiss chard, kale, spinach, arugula. All these things are greens that you can plant. Frisee, endive. There's so many. And they don't need a lot of care other than the watering and being put into nice soil. Again, feed them once in a while. On the coldest of winters, you may get a sharp frost. First of all, almost every cool season crop we're going to talk about right now is tolerant to frost. You don't have to worry so much about the frost. You don't even have to cover. The worst case scenario that I've seen is sometimes on really tender greens like the lettuces. The outer foliage might get a little brown, and you just peel that off and snip that off, and it's fine. It'll grow right out of it. But that's the worst case scenario, and so that's the greens. It is also time for the cole crops, and cole crops include some greens, like I already mentioned cabbage. But in general, when we say cole crops, we're talking about broccoli, cauliflower, Romanesco, Brussels sprouts, those sorts of things. And in general, the stuff that I usually talk about as cole crops, even though cole crops does include cabbage and kale, I'm usually referring to the cole crops that you grow for the bloom or the buds, which is what a broccoli is or a cauliflower. And the main difference with growing those and then growing greens is, well, one, they tend to get big. They tend to get a lot bigger. But number two, because you are growing them for the flower bud, you should feed them a little bit more, and particularly make sure they have enough phosphorus, because phosphorus is the nutrient that is responsible for blooming and such. But anyway, all those are easy to grow. They do get quite big, especially cauliflower gets pretty big. Some people with cauliflower will take the outer leaves and wrap them around that head to, kind of blanch it, to deprive it of sun. I've never really done that myself. I mean, I think I tried it once, and I'm too lazy of a gardener. You don't have to do that. That's the point of that. A cool season but perennial crop are the alliums. Alliums are generally referred to onions. I'm holding in my hands right now what we call scallions, which are just small onions that you're growing to a certain size and you're going to chop up. But there's also chives and Chinese chives and leeks and onions. Some of these things you can plant, a lot of these things you can plant as little starts, but you can also plant bulbs. Like we have bulbs of the Itoi onions, which is the Tahana Autumn variety of onions, like a spreading onion. Also, sometimes you can find, onion sets or garlic sets, which are little mini bulbs that you plant, and now is when you plant them, and you grow them through the winter. But the alliums in general are perennial plants. They're very active in the cool season. One thing to know about onions is that they sometimes go dormant for a short period in the wintertime. They also go dormant for a short period in the summertime, like in June. Onions sometimes just take a break and you just let them do their thing. All these onions that I'm talking about so far are kind of the constantly active onions, the ones that you don't just grow to a bulb and then harvest the whole thing, like you do for, like the bigger onions, the bulb onions. All the onions I'm talking about right now are the, clustering onions that keep going and going, and you just pull off the ones you want. But you also have garlic and onions that you grow, and then you pull them up at the end of the season and use them. But at any rate, they are definitely a fall planting thing. Next, you have your cool season annual herbs, and here are some of them that we have at the moment. Cilantro. Everyone always wants cilantro in the summertime, but that is a cool season herb. It wants to be grown in the cool season. This is a confetti cilantro. Looks different, but that's also a cilantro. We have all the parsleys. There's even a fine-leafed parsley too, called minuet. But all the different parsleys. Then things like mitsuba, chervil, lovage, and salad burnet, dill, fennel, excuse me, chamomile. So these are all cool season herbs. You know what? We'll throw in parsley and celery and celeriac. Celeriac's the one you grow for the roots. These are all cool season plants, and again, kind of average garden soil. Well amended garden soil. Not particularly heavy feeders. Really easy to grow. And these are the annual herbs, so at the end of their season they will bolt, and that'll be the end of them, with the exception of lovage sometimes makes it through summer, and salad burnet, and sometimes chamomile. I've actually even had a celery make it through summer once, but at any rate, just kind of consider these things mostly cool season annuals. The other thing you want to be planting right now are cool season legumes, like let's look at our seeds. Right now we have fava beans and lentils. Of course, the sugar and snap peas. We're going to talk about that in a second. That's sort of an in-between season thing. But in terms of the beans, you have fava beans, you have lentils, you have garbanzo beans you can plant now. We don't have those at the moment, but that's a winter bean. And and then we also have the root crops. And those you don't plant from plants, you plant from seed. Radishes, carrots, beets, parsnips, all those root vegetables which you normally plant from seed. There's a few exceptions, like there's some mustards that create roots that you can plant from a start, and you can also plant, like as we already mentioned, the celeriac as a start, so long as it's not too overgrown. But at any rate, the root crops are generally cool season crops, with the exception of sweet potato, and there's a couple others. A few other random things to mention. Nasturtiums. Now this one doesn't like the frost. You'll have to protect it from frost, but it likes the cool weather. It doesn't like the summer. And then borage is a great cool season herb that you can use. You can eat the leaves. People like to candy the flowers, so that's a good one as well. So anyway, there's other things that I'm not mentioning right now. I'm not thinking about them, and they're not in front of me, so I'm not thinking about them. But if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Cool season vegetables are pretty easy to grow. If you had a hard time growing things in the summertime, especially here in Arizona, the cool season is a confidence builder. So I highly recommend you try growing some cool season crops. Space.